y'all, it is Nikki. Welcome back to the channel. I have just so many thoughts bouncing around in my head. I really just need to pick one to start with. So, reading update. You may remember back in the winter, I made a rather unambitious goal to read 12 books in the year 2024. I'm happy to report that now, midway through June, I have already read 15 books. So I'm gonna up my goal to 24 books in the year 2024 and see if we can do it. Normally when I read, my primary goal is to find books that I want to add to my collection. I just love collecting books. And sadly, I feel like even though I was reading a lot in the winter, my year just got off to kind of a rough start that way. Books that I read were either just kind of disappointing or just books that I wouldn't want to have on my shelf necessarily for like content reasons. But I did manage to get through a lot of books that had been on my TBR for a while. One example would be House of Salt and Sorrows, which I saw on a shelf ages ago and just thought the cover was so gorgeous that I wanted to read it. Would I buy it? Probably not. It ended up being a little bit too dark for me. It's not one that I would ever read again. But I did managed to get through the Shadow and Bone trilogy too, which is one that's been on my mind for a while. Really enjoyed that one. And I just finished reading Rebecca Ross's duology, which is really popular right now, Divine Rivals and Ruthless Vows, which I do not mind saying I fully plan to add to my collection in the near future. There was just something so like wholesome about it, like sort of romantic wartime setting, but also a romance plot built around marriage was just really refreshing. Content-wise, I feel like the romance went like a little further than I needed to go as a reader, but the fact that it happened in the context of marriage was just so beautiful and needed. Plus, I mean, it's kind of a big deal that I read it when I read it, because I've realized this about myself, guys. I tend not to read books that are popular when they're popular. I don't know what this says about me or what like issue this belies, but I'm rarely motivated to read books that other people are reading. I would rather like wait for the hype to die down and then like just read them on my own terms in my own time, if that makes any sense at all. I also just finished reading The Hunchback of Notre Dame. Being a fan of the Disney movie and the Broadway version, the book actually ended up being somewhat disappointing to me. Like, it felt sort of anticlimactic, and there were seeds planted early which didn't amount to anything or pan out later on. A lot happened, but also nothing happened. Also, like, Captain Phoebus? Bad guy. Like, there was nothing romantic about that character. He's just a horrible, horrible person. I was kind of surprised because after reading Les Mis and enjoying that so much, I think I just really had high expectations for that author. In the end, it really just motivated me to put on the Broadway version and belt out my disappointment to the tune of Out There. Right now, I am working my way through Flannery O'Connor's complete collection of short stories, which I'm very pumped about, but I do have to say that I know it's going to take me a really long time, because you can't cruise through Flannery O'Connor. Like yesterday, I sat down to start it, thinking I'm gonna like make a dent in this book, but I had to stop after the first story because it just hit so hard that I needed to sit with it and think about it for a bit. So apologies in advance to the person who lent it to me. I will go as fast as I can. And speaking of lending out books, guys, I know that I'm a bit of a tyrant when it comes to keeping my books pristine and keeping my dust jackets immaculate. And people who borrow books from me know this about me, but I didn't quite realize how much fear I instilled in people that borrow from me until yesterday. I got a message from a friend who has a couple books of mine, and she showed me that she had used a pair of old sweatpants to make a cover for the book because she was so paranoid about smudging it. I mean, I feel kind of bad in part, but also I think it's like the funniest thing ever. This is what a bookish friendship looks like. I feel like because of the books I've been reading lately, which has been a lot of YA, admittedly, I've been on sort of a romance kick, which has actually been really helpful because I'm currently working on a romance project, but I've also been on a real Barbie movie kick lately. I don't know, I just got a sudden, inexplicable urge to revisit that part of my childhood. And guys, like, those movies hold up. Magic of Pegasus? Like, why is that movie so good? The enemies to lovers romance plot, the dark moment story, an actual, like, background for the male love interest, not to mention, like, a quality quest plot. There were a lot of moving pieces in that film. I don't know, I just kind of wish that I'd had that one in my childhood instead of waiting 20 years to see if it lived up to the hype. And yes, I spent $5 to rent it online, and I don't regret it at all, because it actually ended up being very good inspiration for my romance project. So that's like a business expense. Plus, it's kind of encouraging to look back on your childhood and realize that your younger self actually had really good taste. I have one last update. You may or may not remember that I wanted to get my green belt in karate by the end of this year. That will not happen. However, this weekend I just got my orange belt, which is one step closer, and also just really nice to be able to look back on the year and see that I actually have progressed in this thing that was just so far out of my comfort zone. It really just goes to show that, like, even when you feel like you're not improving at something, anytime you commit to putting in the time, you are growing. Same goes for writing. A cursory Google search told me that Hunchback was written a significant amount of time before Les Mis. And I thought that was really cool to see how, like, even the greats grow in their craft over time. They don't just start off great. And that's what we're doing. We are putting in that time right now so that our later stuff will continue to be stronger and stronger than our earlier stuff. These are the thoughts bouncing around in my head. Thank you so much for watching this video, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. And as always, do not forget to spend some time in the clouds today.